While Jamaica and the world works tirelessly to control the spread of the coronavirus and its new variants, a Gleaner expose revealed that Jamaicans were utilizing a cheaper and faster testing method that demands a little or no personal information, with unauthorized persons using WhatsApp or a word of mouth to market these services. Here with us today to discuss this is Dr. Andrew Manning, who's a medical practitioner and president of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Dr. Andrew, morning and welcome to Smart Jamaica, sir.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to your viewers.
Hope all is well, sir.
Morning, Doc. Good to see you.
When we had it this morning, and I said I didn't understand what it means when you say illegal testing. So is it that we're having medical professionals doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, or is the test the proper test and just that they're not the right people, or what? Explain for me, please, sir.
Well, it could be both. I'm familiar with the Gleaner report that you mentioned, but I don't know those doctors directly. But to them, I would say, please cease and desist what you're doing and make contact with the Ministry of Health, because there are a lot of different tests on the market, and many of them are simply not accurate enough.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, in terms of what we read in the newspaper, they spoke about a rapid antigen test. There is a rapid antigen test that has been brought in by the ministry to be used both within the public and the private sector. As far as I know, I think 8 labs have been authorized to do the rapid antigen test. And if you're not one of those 8 labs, we are imploring you to talk to the Ministry of Health so they can look and see what you have to see if it meets the standards and see how you can be regulated moving forward. Because there are several things. Not all antigen tests are the same. Some of them really give you the correct answer less than 10% of the time. Okay? All of the manufacturers, will give you certain levels of accuracy in terms of sensitivity and specificity, but they have to be subject to a certain amount of scrutiny by a recognized entity. So a lot of these tests have not been.
Okay.
The other thing is the tests have to be done in a correct way. There is a certain amount of training that is required. The rapid antigen test that is authorized for use here depends on a nasal swab. So you have to put deploy that swab correctly to have a chance to pick up the viral antigen. And there are also safety issues at hand, right? The testing places have to meet certain protocols in terms of what we call the biosafety protocols. And the Ministry of Health have people who will go around, inspect your facilities, and advise you as to whether you're doing the test correctly or if you're doing it in a safe fashion or not. Because with respect to COVID, doing the test can actually be dangerous if you're not careful. If you do the test without adequate levels of protection, you can catch the virus or spread it to other places. Now, on the flip side, Neville and Empress, we know there is a need for increased capacity for testing. And the MAJ has been on record for the government to engage with private entities, but it needs to be done in a coordinated and organized way, which will allow for persons to do accurate enough tests and tests which are safe. And the third thing is that with respect to COVID, we have to make sure that the test results are reported through appropriate channels to the Ministry of Health. Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah. Let me come in. First, you said at the start of the answer that you said you want to talk to those doctors, which would suggest that there are medical doctors doing this. Double-barrel question. Do you pay for the test if it goes through the ministry? And do you pay for the test if it goes to one of these doctors?
All right. So I can't speak to what happens with these doctors in quotation, as you're saying. I'm only aware of a media report. I really don't know much more details about that.
Okay.
I've heard anecdotally. But if you're doing the test in the government lab, you don't have to pay, right? Or the government facility, because a rapid antigen test can be done in many locations throughout the island, all right? And if you're doing it through one of the 8 approved labs, you would have to pay a fee.
Okay.
Doc, I want you to take us through the process of testing. Many Jamaicans are afraid to be tested. Conspiracy theories and ideas that have been circulating. And there's the antigen test, there's the PCR test. What is the difference? You mentioned about the nasal swab for the antigen. Is it nasal? Is it throat? Is it, it's been changing. I think first it was both nasal and throat, and now I witnessed some testing the other day. It was nasal and throat. So what is correct? What is the proper testing procedure? And to help those who are afraid of being tested with all the conspiracy theories out there, what would you recommend as a doctor?
Firstly, don't be afraid to be tested. If you need to find out if you have COVID-19, it's much better for you to find out than not. All right, that's the first thing. Both the PCR tests and the approved rapid antigen tests currently in Jamaica utilize a nasal swab. All right. I think I need to define what an antigen is. The structure of the virus is such that you have a wall. You remember those pictures from biology days. You have a wall or capsid which contains genetic material, which in the case of this virus is RNA. So what the antigen test does, it tries to detect particular subunits of the wall itself or other structural things in the antigen. All right. And it basically uses a type of reaction or assay which will detect the antigen, amplify it, and give you an indicator that that thing is there. And with a rapid antigen test, all of that is contained within the particular test kit. So that's why you can do the antigen test. Somebody at that location goes to the machine, deploys it correctly, and gets a result typically within half an hour. All right. With the PCR test, it's also a nasal swab. That swab has to be transported in a particular medium and sent to a particular lab which has a machine which can run the PCR test. So it breaks down the organic content and amplifies the genetic material, and then it detects it. That one is much more sensitive, but it has to go to a central location. The other difference though, and people need to know this, the PCR test, if done correctly, is very accurate, okay? In terms of sensitivity and specificity, we're talking about over 90% sensitivity and specificity. The rapid antigen test that is currently approved for use in Jamaica is very sensitive and specific if the patient is symptomatic, all right? If the patient is symptomatic, it gives you accuracy rates of in the region of 70% and over. If you are not symptomatic and you do the rapid antigen test, that figure drops down to less than 50-50. And so it is not to be used for screening purposes. So people may decide that they need to do a test to say travel or just to find out if they have it without any symptoms. That rapid antigen test would not be the test for you. And in fact, I would say to persons, if they're going to any entity that is offering these tests, ask them if they have been authorized or validated by the Ministry of Health. Because if they haven't been, the test might not be accurate enough. And again, to those individuals or entities, touch bases with the Ministry of Health so that you can try and approach the thing in the right way, in a safe way.
All right, Doc, thank you. I think you answered the question there, which is how do we, the patients, know whether the doctor is administering the right test or not? Ask, is this an approved rapid test that they are giving us? So patients, ask the questions when you go to be tested or call the Ministry of Health. Dr. Andrew Manning, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Stay safe.
You too. Stay COVID-free. Medical practitioner and president of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Still ahead, my people, we speak with a young man creating waves of opportunities for Jamaican youth. So sit tight. We'll be right back after this break.